Hey everybody, welcome back. So let's start talking a little bit about backups of the FortiManager. Not talking about backups of your FortiGate devices or anything like that. This is specifically about the FortiManager itself. So backups need to be configured on your devices. You have your global database, you have your flash configuration, things along that lines that you can back up. However, it does not back up logs, doesn't back up the FortiGate, doesn't back up objects and firmware. So you really need to be mindful of what you're backing up and where. And this is why you want to do things like syslogs and such to move your logs off of your FortiManager as quickly as possible in the event of some type of failure. Now, to schedule your backups inside of FortiManager, there is no GUI. There's a couple commands you have to do. It's config system backup all settings. From there, you'll turn it on or off, enable or disable. You'll set your server that you're going to configure it, and that can be by IP address or by FQDN. The only way you can do it by FQDN is if you have DNS configured already on your FortiManager. Just be mindful of that. Again, not that I've ever seen that before or done it myself or anything, but I've heard that if you forget to configure DNS, you'll troubleshoot an FQDN issue for hours before you figure it out. Don't do that, right? And then you will be able to set up your protocol, whether you're going to do SCP, FTP, SFTP. Most places now it's SCP and SFTP because FTP is considered unsecured in a lot of environments, but you'll configure it and set it up there. Now, what you're going to do here in the GUI in the system settings that we looked at before, in there, where I have the red square, sometimes you'll be able to go in there if it's configured. You'll be able to go in there and select that, and it'll pull up the backups, kind of give you a status check and things along that lines. However, in the demo environment that we have, it doesn't have that. So I've done a screenshot here from a different platform. So I'm not going to take you over to the demo environment because it's just not there. Now, once you have this backup, you've run your backup and you have it and you want to restore it. What you have to understand is you're restoring to your FortiManager, which manages all of your devices. So when you do the backup, when you do the restore, I should say, from the backup, it reboots your device. So you can do your restore from GUI or from your CLI. Doesn't do restores from mismatched firmware and models. This is extremely important. So what you're going to see out there is you're going to have a FortiManager device. Something's going to, take an early vacation, so to speak, and someone's going to say, hey, grab this old device and let's just run with it. No. If the firmware and models don't match, you cannot do a backup and restore because there is differences in the configs. And again, you can do that same thing in the system settings down there. Now, migrating from one to another. So initially, you back it up. If it's the same device, same model, same config, it's pretty straightforward. You just upload the config back in. Now, when you're trying to back up in configuration and you're migrating, here's what you're going to do. You're going to do your exec commands, and there's actually a migrate all settings. This is different. This is different than what you're doing with a backup. You're migrating the settings off to a file so that you can migrate those settings back onto a new file. Here's why that's important, because what you're going to do is bring your new one up. You're going to go into what's known as offline mode. Here's the important reason why. So you have all these devices out there. You have a FortiManager. If in the process of a backup and restore, something goes sideways on your FortiManager, you run the risk of pushing bad information down to your devices and making an uncomfortable situation with a backup or restore in a FortiManager to a potential business outage situation. Because if you're running your FortiGate firewalls, they're being managed by the FortiManager, they will run independently even if they're not talking to the FortiManager. However, you bring the FortiManager up and it's connected with what they call the FGFM, the management protocol on TCP 541. What happens is if it pushes bad information down to your firewalls, now your firewalls have bad information and it can really, really cause an issue. So you will do this in what is called offline mode. So when the backup's restored, the 40 manager is considered offline. It is not communicating with the FortiGate devices in your environment. This is just a precaution to make sure that your backup and restore is done correctly before you re-enable your FortiManager to talk to your setup. So inside your system settings, your advanced is where your offline mode is at, and you can go there and say, hey, turn this back on. We want to communicate. So you will do your backups or a migrate. You will pull the data into your new FortiManager device. It will be in offline mode, so it can't affect your other devices. And then from there, you will go in and turn it back to online. So it will now reestablish connections inside of your environment. Now, with your backups, you have different things you can do here. What they're talking about, you can reset using your local console, reset settings. Reset all your configuration except for your interface and routing. So think about what they're saying here. So you have something going on. Maybe you have a firewall you want to reuse in an environment, and for whatever reason, you need to reset all the different policies and everything. You just set your reset, and what that does is it goes in and says, hey, just remove everything except for your routing and your interface configurations so that we can still access the devices, which is different than formatting or setting back to factory reset. There's a difference there. The factory reset says get rid of everything. I don't care. Get rid of everything. Set this back to just like it came from the manufacturer out of the box. So you kind of got to remember there's a difference there. You can reset it, all the settings, keep the routing, keep the interfaces, and you can do a factory reset, which really just blanks the box, sets it back to factory defaults, and you start over from scratch. So different configurations you saw there, different reasons for backups. You can do a backup, you can do a migration, you can do a restore, you can do a reset, you can do a factory reset. All these different things you will do throughout your career, and there's different reasons for each. So that's just kind of a basic overview of them. Again, highly encourage you, get out in some environments, do this a couple times. If you have the opportunity to have a lab that you can do this on, I would definitely recommend that you do this a couple times to see, make sure that you understand the process. It's one thing to learn it, talk about it. It's totally different to do it. But until then, guys, good luck with this, and we'll see you on the next slide deck.